Okay, so I'll just give you all a brief background now. I think it'll perhaps help you all understand certain points here. I grew up in Bombay. I'm Bengali. I grew up in Bombay, which meant that this world is a world that I was not aware of. Okay. I had never experienced a Durga Puja like this. Though growing up in Bombay, we were seeing Durga Puja, obviously, like you'll know, I'm sure you will know, but it's not like this, right? What was my knowledge of it? The knowledge was that I would keep hearing from my parents, because every year at the end of Durga Puja for VIBGYOR, I would call up my uncles, my grandparents and all to kind of wish them and do, but on the phone or whatever. I knew that such a thing existed in my family. So originally we were zamindars, we were landed gentry. Therefore we were having a Durga Puja like this. Now the thing to be understood is that the Durga Puja that we see in Kolkata is a bit is a sort of more pumped up version of what we see in Bombay. But the reason Durga Pujas of this kind existed was, one, because Durga Puja is a very expensive affair. So who could actually do a Durga Puja? It was obviously the guys who had money. They were essentially then the zamindars. So it had a certain kind of social hierarchy thing to it. Now, so when I began, so like I said, I had little experience of something like this. When I became a photographer, it was possible for me to figure out ki chutti kab milega, when can I travel. That's when I first landed up here. Now when I first landed up in my ancestral village, what happened? I was gone hook, line and sinker. Okay, I had never experienced anything of this kind. I had never even traveled in rural Bengal actually before this. So everything that I was seeing around me was like exotic and how. Okay, and a lot of y'all, because you are doing photography, this is the trap that you all fall in. I'm not necessarily saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that this is what happens to all of us. You land up in a place like this, and the predictable pictures is what floats up. Okay, so you start seeing the ponds, you start seeing the ducks, you start seeing the palm trees, you start seeing a house as grand as that with these pillars. You are reminded of maybe Sanjay Leela Bhansali's Devdas, because those become your reference points, because everything to do with Bengal for the rest of India is either Devdas or Parinita or some nonsense like that, right? It may not necessarily be the real thing. In my case, what happened actually was, when I came back to Bombay with that first year's photograph, I was really chuffed that I had done these pictures. Also to be remembered, this is the time when we were shooting on film. And as newspaper photographers, we weren't getting great salaries. Okay, so today what every photographer says, personal project, long-term project, these were terms that didn't exist. Okay, photographers, in fact, there were within the fraternity, there were lots of people who used to kind of make snide comments or laugh that I was photographing my own family. It wasn't a very common thing then. Okay, this book came out in 2012, I think. So imagine this shot, so from 99 to 2012 or 2013 is when this work was. At that time, these weren't very common things. So I would kind of carry 5 rolls of film with me. So now you can do the math. 5 rolls of film, so that's 36 frames into 5. That's about 180 frames a year over 13 years. That's about 2,300 odd frames. This project was 2,300 odd frames, shot over 13 years. But actually, net, it's actually just 65 days of shooting. Okay? So I think I'm throwing these numbers at you because these people latch on to these numbers, where they say, hey, 13 years he worked on it. It's actually, if you think about it, 65 days of shooting, 300 days of thinking. We'll come to the thinking part when I explain how this went. How is this being put together? Like I said, this was a milieu that I didn't know of. I had no idea what to shoot. And when I say what to shoot, it means, you watch films, we all watch films, right? How are films shot? A good film would have a script. Okay, sure, you could also make films, we made decent Hindi films before where nobody had a script, they would write dialogues on the set. You can do that as well. But I'm saying ideally, you have a script, which means you have a plan. Okay? And that plan, that means that somebody has sat down and figured what is the story that I'm going to tell. And not just that, how am I going to tell that story? Okay? Which then means, like in any story, let's take a film like Sholay, and I'm saying Sholay because this is our generation. I mean, my students who are much younger have no idea when I talk to them about Sholay, the classroom kind of looks back at me and what are you talking? But when I say Sholay, if you think about it, each of those are characters, okay, with definitive character arcs, right? So there's Gabbar Singh, there's Jay, there's Viru, there's A.K. Hangal's character, there's even Sachin's character, everybody, right? I mean, chota, bada, important, not so important, everybody is a character. You have figured how do they come together, right? Now when you're doing a project like, so if you think about it, all the people that you saw, now when we see it again, you saw it like you would see the book first in a shop, पहले आपने flip कर दिया. Now we are फुर्सत से जब देखोगे, you start seeing realizing that these are characters who keep repeating. Okay? This is my family. So my mother's there, father's there, uncle's there. All of these, old family retainers are there, the family priest is there, everybody is there. Okay? They all come in. A lot of them, you may not really know the significance of each one there. I mean, that's possible, right? I mean, because that kind of cultural dissonance might exist, right? I mean, I might be looking at a photo essay on Italy and I don't know everything about Italy. But I mean, in some ways I connect. So I'm hoping that you connected, but you will probably start figuring it out. Yeah. So we'll quickly just go over these pages. I'm not bothering you all with this. Okay. So obviously, I mean, we need to think how do you begin the story, okay? And so there was a picture, if you remember, much later of a bamboo grove and a lady sleeping with a child. Very early so one of my processes of work when I'm doing projects like this is if I have figured how do I want the final dissemination of the project? Is it going to be a book? Is it going to be an exhibition? Is it going to be something else? So I'm saying, let's assume that I said, okay, this is going to be a book. It took a while, a couple of years, 2 or 3 years to arrive at that because of confidence issues, because one was the